Hey, it's Tammy time. Welcome to the show, where the fun's always prime. I'm your host, Tammy Hernandez, and I'm here to bring the heat, with conversations that sparkle and energy that can't be beat. From lifestyle to entertainment and everything in between, we'll dive into topics that matter and make your day supreme. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's get started. It's Tanny time, and we're gonna have a blast every single part.
Hi, and welcome again to Tammy Time. I'm Tammy Hernandez, and for those of you who know me, we do not have Gizmo today, who's normally my co-host, because he has taken the day off to hang out with his Aunt Hope. So it's me, and then my guest today is Dr. Toby, who has been here once before, and he brought one of his friends because there's some very important numbers and just information that just came out. So can you tell us about it and where everybody can find you, Toby?
Yes, and thank you. Nice to be here again. Tammy, thank you so much for having me. And I've got a colleague of mine who's a clinical psychologist, board certified. He just wrote an article that just came out today, and I really encourage everyone to read it. And there's a reason why. Related to you, Tammy, we're talking about sexual dysfunction, and we're talking about young kids being placed on psychotropic medications that cause this type of problem. And so we're going to review some of that data with Dr. Roger McFillin. And why don't you just share a little bit about your background, just maybe a quick intro of what you do and why you do it.
First of all, Tammy, great to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you. How long are you in town for?
I'm leaving tomorrow. I've been here for a few days. But
What'd you do for fun?
Hung on the beach for the most part. I'm
So-
writing a book.
Oh, you're writing a book?
Yes.
On what?
Expose, the mental health industrial complex, and all of the problems. A lot of things we're going to talk about today.
Oh, well, I believe that because instead of fixing the problem, they give you a pill in this country for a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, these drugs are dangerous. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Dr. Roger McFillin. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm probably best known for the Radically Genuine podcast and my Substack, which is Radically Genuine as well, which is a bestseller in health politics on the platform.
Yeah, and I just started listening to it, Radically Genuine podcast.
Yes,
I'm telling you, it's
podcast.
good. You guys got to look it up.
And what days do you normally do your podcast?
Thursdays, they're released usually a new episode every week. And if you check me out on Substack too, I'm usually
on what
releasing.
platforms?
On Substack, it's Dr. McFillin at Substack.com, Radically Genuine. So the podcast is released on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast.
Okay.
But I've gotten more into writing right now, and that's kind of what's growing. And I think it's going to be the mainstay of kind of our discussion today. What I discuss is the harms of psychiatric diagnoses and drugs, the mental health industrial complex, how it's created generations of sick people dependent on drugs, hard to get off of them, getting worse, developing metabolic illness. And I think one of the things we're going to talk about today is post-SSRI sexual dysfunction.
I know a boat captain. I was on the boat with him, and he decided to stop taking his Xanax and had a seizure out on the boat.
Yeah.
And he's a charter boat captain, so he's the captain running the boat.
Yeah.
And they had to have, the hospital, not the sheriff's department had to go take their boat out to go collect him and his paying customers.
Yeah, well, and whether you like President Trump, hate President Trump, doesn't matter. He did come out with, in February of 2025, saying, hey, let's make America healthy. And this was the initiative, and specifically said, hey, I want to look at selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, the antidepressant, anti-anxiety we call it, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers in children, and said, let's analyze this and look at this. And that's exactly what Dr. McFillin did, is he looked at the data himself through the Freedom of Information, through another organization called CCHR, Citizens Commission on Human Rights. I'm a commissioner of that organization, which is why I'm kind of here.
I have a question that might sound stupid or not educated. I think a lot of the problems with the kids these days is that they're not used to, and I can even say my children or whatnot in their 20s, that they're used to, they think that you're just supposed to be happy 24/7. They don't get that a job is work. That's why it's a JOB. And that you're supposed to be happy in your off time. Your job life isn't perfect, but because of social and scrolling They think that everything's just supposed to be happy, happy, joy. And if you're not happy being entertained and happy in everything you're doing, there's something wrong with you.
It's an interesting point. I went back and looked at data from the early 1920s, 30s, and 40s. Less than 1% of the American population would identify themselves as depressed in a given year. And of those less than 1%, they'd always attribute it to aspects of their life, breakups, losses, struggling with finances. It's always about things that are going on in their life. Guess what the numbers are today? Somewhere between 25 to 30% of someone is going to say that they're depressed in a given year, and they're going to attribute to things that are outside of their control, almost like it's something genetic. So there's just been this propaganda about like there is something within you that's broken, and it's pushed out there.
Well, I say if you watch the commercials, okay, so I never watch cable TV these days, the ones with the commercials, because I'm going to be honest. You watch them and okay, so the commercials are, all right, you have an itchy vajayjay, your wee can't get it up, you're depressed because of you having those two things, or you need to go to rehab. Okay, those are the commercials that we watch. I mean, not like when I'm in London and it's Save the Donkeys.
Yeah. Well, and think about it, it's kind of what, maybe that's a lead-in, is if you can't get your wee up, that's called, sexual dysfunction disorder for a reason, right?
Well, that's probably why they're marketing blue chews to 20-some-year-olds, because Chaz and I have done those videos for his, because he's paid to collab with them.
Well, think about it. 1 in 5 Americans takes a psychiatric medication.
Okay.
1 in 4 women are taking an antidepressant or some other sort of psychiatric medication, which is really scary. And now we're finding from this data that the Medicaid, children, the most vulnerable population, that get put, on these medications now, which is roughly, I think the data said half of the kids who are taking medication in the country are Medicaid kids. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if we can really get those accurate numbers, but this is what we do have. We have 18 states that came back with this data. And of the 18 states, I'm sorry, 32 states, right? A little more than half of the country. So there was 18 states that we don't have the numbers. Right. But you're looking at $3 billion that is dedicated to the psychiatric drugging of kids.
And that's our tax money, $3 billion of our money.
None of my kids were ever on any of those things, and neither have I. I haven't ever been on any of them.
Yeah, what's interesting is we got data on kids younger than 5, 270,000 kids.
How can a 5-year-old be depressed?
They can't.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
They're placed on stimulant drugs. They're placed on antipsychotics. There's a cocktail of drugs that are being prescribed to kids as young as 5, under 5. We even have data on kids under 1 year old who are being prescribed various psychiatric drugs.
And I just thought we had to worry about puberty blockers in kids.
Yeah, and the docs, I've been involved in these cases, when I've gone to court, doing the forensic work, and their justification is that, well, mom was diagnosed bipolar or depressed, and therefore prophylactically I'm going to drug this baby in the hopes that they don't do that, which there's no data to support that whatsoever. And frankly, it's child abuse. It's criminal. And they should be held accountable for that.
Well, I could say some kids could need it, but not that many.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've seen some crazy kids.
Yeah.
Well, let's call it what it is, right? Like sometimes there are situations where some kids' behavior's out of control.
Yes.
But it's drugging, it's sedating that behavior. It's not helping them with what the root causes are.
I mean, I believe in trying everything else before you get to the meds, because that's last resort.
You have 2 choices. If you get somebody that's out of control, whether it be an adult or a child, and you're trying to control them, you've got physical restraint or you got chemical restraint.
Right.
So, you pick which one you think is less harmful, to an individual. I would say that the physical restraint might be, simply because I don't think it's doing the damage, neurologically to the brain. The study that I looked at, where they were looking at sexual dysfunction because of SSRIs, because of the antidepressants, when they looked at it, their words were,
and
these
bipolar people have
these are chemical lobotomizers. They basically resemble a chemical lobotomy.
But most of the people who are on bipolar, schizophrenic and stuff, they have those issues also with needing blue chews or needing things to help with getting it up after they're on the meds, or even feeling like it.
Yeah, I think it's a general attack on life. Like the things you're talking about, and we were talking about before we came on here, regarding the degree of sexual dysfunction, low testosterone, all these things that exist at such young ages are a consequence of the toxicity in our food, the environment, the lack of connection to nature, to people. And then drugs like this, like psychiatric drugs, are attack on life themselves. There's a blunting and a numbing of all the emotions, all the experience that makes you a human being.
Well, like what I've noticed, a lot of people from up north, when they move to Florida, first thing they do is they cut down the fruit trees in the yard, and then they paint the roof black. Or they put on a black roof, I guess because that's what they're used to up north.
Yeah.
So in Florida, you should have a white roof. Why? Because 20 degrees cooler. If you put a black, you're getting a magnet. But they take down the fruit trees, or some realtor was hosting an open house, and he had an avocado. I'm like, in his yard. Oh, do you eat the avocados from? No, I buy them at the grocery store. It's like, but you have an avocado tree without the pesticides, without the stuff, and it's in your yard. So why would you be buying it?
No, you're right. I mean, people need to realize that, you don't have the data, you're going to make bad choices. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about today, is that a lot of parents and a lot of people aren't getting the correct data because the doctors aren't getting the correct data, because they're getting their data from the drug companies who have a hidden agenda.
But the drug companies and the statistics and the numbers that they're told about the meds, those aren't correct numbers, because those numbers are based off of their protocol to wanting the drugs passed versus reality and good and bad, because he who holds the money gets to navigate that, because they exclude things or they don't do the whole. Like I was looking up something where they said that cholesterol was blah 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 and so bad that the guy who put that up in, what was it, the 50s, I forgot his name, but he did it, and he only did it off one demographic and not the true thing. Or like our cholesterol rate here for needing to be on cholesterol medicine in the US. Most people don't know that it's lower, the number is lower here than what the European standard is.
Yeah.
And so they just believe whatever the doctor tells them.
And it's also following the money. So even when it comes to cholesterol,
you like
funded by the sugar companies, right? Because a lot of our health problems are related to over amount of sugar and carbohydrates.
But it depends on the sugar.
That's a good point, though. In your article that came out today, you highlighted there's a prescriber, I think you said Illinois, that you kind of looked at. And you didn't look at all, just one in Illinois. And you said, look at the top prescribers, and said, why is Medicaid funding, going bankrupt? It's because of the certain group of prescribers that are just writing out prescriptions like it's just candy.
But then I have a question, because the difference is that I'll pay for my medications without insurance.
Yeah.
And because you have top 20 lobbyists, there are top 6 pharmaceutical companies, then from that you go to insurance companies, then higher education. So what most people think are the top lobbyists for Congress, it's really not.
Yeah.
So like for insurance, I can go pick up meds at a mom and pop pharmacy that without a prescription, and it's less than what people pay for with their co-pays a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because of the insurance company has negotiated these deals for it. Like you can go get an MRI for $200 without insurance, but if you use your insurance, it's $1,200.
Right. Yeah.
And most people don't know those.
Yeah, I mean, it's a systemic problem. I think what you're referring to is the assembly line that exists right now because of the perverse incentives that exist. One woman, she was a psychiatric nurse practitioner in the state of Illinois, was making $240,000 in reimbursements just for the stimulant drug, so just for ADHD.
Yeah.
Wait, she gets a reimbursed for that in that state? Like it's a kickback, basically. Well, we would say in the mortgage, when I had my mortgage company, we put this many points on the front, this many points on the back. The back I get paid from the thing, the customer doesn't know.
Right, and it's not so much a kickback, it's just that as doctors, when we see a patient, we have a certain code, a CPT code that we give and we submit, and then you get paid on that. For a certain, if you're doing medication management, you're getting a certain amount of money for that. I think it was $240,000. I saw the number here for all, and it was $204,000 for just ADHD meds.
Okay, so it's just $204 for ADHD. I don't think we had the data for the other drugs, but just think about what that means for over $200 grand just for ADHD.
Yeah.
I think the numbers were something astronomical. Like she had to be seeing like
1,700 patients in a week.
Yeah, and what
One
does,
year.
What does that amount to? Like something like 18 a day
I'm not
for
that smart.
every day.
Do the math. What's 1,700 divided by 365?
It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just somebody writing prescriptions on an assembly line,
Yeah.
drugging kids, boom, 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 and then we're paying for it. Our tax dollars
Making
are paying
hundreds
for
of
it.
thousands of dollars.
Okay, so my daughter,
Yeah.
she was put on that when she was a child, but when she was put on it, they had to do a 3-hour test because I fought to the nail to see her not being on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So they did the 3-hour test just for her to see if she needed it.
Right.
Like a sit-down test and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And when I gave it to her, I'm probably the bad parent because I'd only
Yeah.
do it Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Because when she wasn't in school, why does she need to stay focused?
Yeah, well, and there's, I mean, they call it med holidays where people go on and go off and
But
stuff.
yeah,
And
but my
just-
boys never needed it. It
Yeah,
was just,
and I mean, again, I worked in a lot of school districts, you know, and I can definitely see kids that are like bouncing off the walls, and there's always a reason for it. We can debate till the cows come home whether there's
Well,
a quote-unquote need
see,
to put a child on a
now,
stimulant med or
you
other
want to
drug.
know what I did though before I ever had it? She was never allowed red dye. So no,
Yep.
I didn't have Hawaiian Tropic in my house. I cut out all those things because I know those were triggers for it
Yeah.
from day one. We didn't have that at my house.
Yeah.
So for me, but the difference was is she went from, because the boys were all good, they stayed focused in school and because she wasn't the hyperactivity, she just did not stay focused.
Sure.
For doing work. She wasn't out running around. It was,
Yeah, but we act like it's supposed to be normal that kids are supposed to sit in a chair all day under this fluorescent lighting in school, and then if
Right.
they're not focusing, then somehow they're disordered and it's not the
Right.
environment.
But it
But
will
she
work.
just
Drugs will
went
work
from-
always. Again,
but she went from a CD student to an AB
sure.
student.
And again, that's why a lot of people say, hey, the end justifies the means. So it's
Oh.
like, hey, we'll put a drug in, but the child will do what we want and get better grades and
I
do
took
that
her
stuff.
off of it in middle school.
Yeah. I will
Like
say
I
one
said, I'm the bad parent.
Yeah.
No, you're the good parent.
I think it'd be
Trust me,
helpful
I
for
look
the-
at the long-term outcomes on these.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for the audience to understand. We're talking about mental health, and people think
Yes.
that these diagnoses are just like real diagnoses, like diabetes and cancer and things.
No.
Keep in mind, the way you get labeled with a diagnosis, and obviously you know this as well as I do, is you do things or you don't do things that certain people like. It's a checkoff list that we have in our book, the DSM. And if you do a thing or don't do a thing or think a certain way or don't think a certain way, we label you, but you can't have it. And there's a difference in even our language. We say, I have bipolar. Well, it's incorrect English because you can't have bipolar any more than you can have Catholic. If I pray, if I go to communion, if I kneel, if I do things or don't do things or believe or don't believe certain things, I'm labeled Catholic. But
Right.
nobody would say, I have Catholic. But we often say, I have bipolar, but it's the exact same situation because it's a label. You can have it one day, quote unquote, labeled one day, and 2 weeks later, you're not labeled it.
Even that's transitioned to I am bipolar.
Yeah.
Right now, it
Yeah.
takes on a whole identity of who
Right.
you are, and you see your entire life now through this lens that any emotions that you experience in the least bit that are intense, that's my bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
You know, you see this over and over again, a degree of identification with these psychiatric
Yeah.
diagnoses.
Well, it's with kids too, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, when they say, oh, I have ADHD, they
Yes.
act, and there's research to support that. We've seen studies showing that, hey, if you say that you have something, you act that out. And even
Right.
if the teacher thinks you have it, they see you that way.
And they
kind of-
treat you differently.
Correct.
I just because I know my daughter was the harder one of the kids,
Yeah.
and she was also dyslexic.
Yeah.
So she had different things that the boys did not have.
I can't imagine you getting treated differently just by the way you look or appearance.
Oh, I
you know.
get treated differently all the time. It's entertaining. I mean, it's great for speeding tickets.
Yes, well, you have this amazing, huge, you know, personality, this dual personality that a lot of men seem to like, and hopefully they will, you know, not go on to antidepressants and then not be able to later perform when they get married and decide that they want to have
Well,
children, because
the funny
this is
thing
really
about this
interrupting that.
entire conversation is I was just on the Brooklyn Cafe morning show, and guess what? One of the sponsors was this new Blue Chew pill. So it's like,
Yeah.
so that was like, oh, so it's all the way around. We've circled back to the
Yeah.
entire thing for today's
Well, the
topic.
problem is that you have billions of dollars in drug company, and then you have organizations like CCHR, Citizens Commission on Human Rights.
Right.
And I strongly encourage people to look that up, cchrinternational.org. they're the ones pushing back against this monster. This is like, the fight between, David and Goliath.
Right.
But it only takes a few strong-willed people like Dr. Roger McFillin here and CCHR to kind of get the word out.
I'll be the first to say I'm not the normal parent or not the normal person, because I have the books that leave the pharmacy at home, treat yourself with, and I have the herbs, and I make the Amish amoxicillin with the cough suppressants with the honey and the fermented onions in it, and the honey and ferment with the garlic, because they two different things. I have the oregano oil, so I am the and I know the different plants. Like if you just chew thyme with honey, that clears all your congestion up. So I'm that person.
Yeah, which is the exact opposite.
Of what you would see and look at me, you'd think I have every chemical known to man.
Well, and it's unfortunate too, because a lot of doctors, treat it like, oh, these medications are just like taking, a vitamin, when in fact, stimulant medication is a class 2 narcotic.
It is.
The same as
Actually, it
oxycodone
just has because Adderall, it's just one off from what is that? Not method, not
methamphetamine.
Methamphetamine, that's it.
Yeah, I think
it's one chemical off. Am I correct?
It has the same degree of an effect. Like, one of the things is we shouldn't be using the word medicine. Like, that's false advertising, because we're communicating that there's something that's being corrected, that there's a medicinal aspect to this, and it's a drug, and it's a drug effect. These are chemical effects, and they have very serious consequences. And that's why it's a Schedule II narcotic, because of the degree of dependency and then the consequences of being on this drug. You mentioned earlier, like when it comes to like Adderall or stimulant and kids being placed on like holidays, like that's an important piece to this, because kids get dependent to this drug very, very quickly, and then you experience the withdrawal effects. And what are we doing to developing brains by putting kids on Schedule II narcotics, taking them off, putting them on, taking them off, and then having to assume that this is something medicinal that the brain requires.
And again, drugs will work. They'll do something to your brain, and then if you want to focus, maybe that'll happen, but it comes with a price. I saw a study that talked about, I think it was 70 to 80% of college kids before they exit college abused stimulant medication while in college.
Well, also a lot of the times, because I have my college degree in substance abuse counseling. So the book you're
another
talking
thing
about,
that we learn about Tammy.
Yes. So the book that you're talking about, I made a joke that one day, what was it? Somebody asked if I was a doctor when I had Dr. Gill being trained to do Botox. He's a psychiatrist. I said, I got my medical degree at the Ritz-Carlton weekend course, and in the book you keep saying, I said there's a new mental disorder I came up with, and it's Twitter Tourette's.
Ooh.
For the people who can't control their stuff online. So that's going to be the new one.
Oh, interesting.
I came with a joke.
Yeah,
I said
I'm sure
Twitter
there's a lot more
Tourette's is
coming
the
down the
new one
pipeline.
that's being added with my degree, with my medical license that I got at the Ritz-Carlton weekend course.
Wow. I'm really thrilled that you're willing to do this work. You have an amazing audience. A lot of guys out there watching this, and a lot of guys obviously are tuning in because they just love your personality and everything about you, which is true. I mean, you're very dynamic as a person.
Well, because I ask questions on my son Chaz's dating show. Like, I asked this one kid, he's 21, and I asked him, okay, so what's the most times you've orgasmed in a day, in a 24-hour period? He said 2 times. I said, really? And then I politely said, and what's the amount of you've made the person you're with? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, really? So these are in their 20s, so A, they don't know how to, or B, they just can't on both sides of the spectrum. So your guys' numbers in comparison to the questions I have now asked all of Chaz's friends, girls and boys, the numbers now make sense as to why they're saying this, because I just thought that they didn't know what they were doing. So,
well, I'm gonna share just a little bit with you real quick. So the 26th Annual Sexual Medicine Society of North America. Yes, there's such a thing, guys, out there called the sexual group. They did a study, and they presented this study of young men, average age 27, and they looked at them who took SSRIs, antidepressants. 89% of them had sexual nerve damage downstairs where they couldn't, get erect from it. And this was 6 months after they did it. So if you care at all about being able to have an erection, or for that matter, if you haven't heard of this called anaorgasmia. Anaorgasmia is where you can't have an orgasm. And this is a true thing coming from psychiatric medication. So when you say like, how many times could they, climax or have an orgasm? And they say, I could do it only once. Okay, well, great, kudos for him for being able to do that. But if he was trying to do it maybe multiple times and he was taking an antidepressant, it's possible that the antidepressant was the cause of it. This
but
is why
I know people
happening.
that are like twice the age that have no issues multiple, so.
Yeah, well, probably because they are a lot more natural.
Okay, I didn't know we were time's almost up. That was a good, okay. That's funny. We went really quickly.
It did go quick,
Now can you both tell everybody where to find you all?
Yeah. So again, I'm Dr. Toby. You can just find me on Instagram, Dr. Toby Watson. The only one out there globally, and happy to do this kind of work with you guys. Roger, Dr. McFillin.
Yeah, find me on Substack, drmcfillin.substack.com. It's at Radically Genuine. Follow the Radically Genuine podcast. I'm on X too, at Dr. McFillin. We talk a lot about these issues. To your final point here for antidepressants is they're numbing agents, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And they're going to induce numbing and blunting, and that includes the genitals. So that should be expected.
And thank you for tuning in to Tammy Time, and follow me on all platforms. Generally, it's Tammy H. the Realtor, or just Google Tammy Hernandez and I tend to pop up. And I will be sharing all of their stuff on my platforms because I find all of these numbers very interesting because I love numbers and statistics. And we'll be keeping you updated on all of the stuff that they're able to do. Thank you.
As we wrap up today's show, I want to thank each and every one of you for being part of the Tammy Time community. I'm so grateful for the conversations we've had and the stories we've shared. Remember, you are strong, capable, and deserving of love and respect. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. Keep shining your light and know that I'm rooting for you every step of the way. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And I'll see you tomorrow on Tammy Time.